Dear lovely, lovely watchers of my YouTube channel. My one subscriber, how are you out there? The way that Piers Morgan has done this interview and the level of questions that he's asked this woman and how she's been treated really on this stage. But I'm trying to be as objective about it as I can and sort of not on her side because I don't want to take sides, but with a more balanced view of not looking at her as if she is a crazed stalker, because she was very brave to go on Piers Morgan. Really, really, really brave. I think that was a very, very brave thing for her to do. The amount of questions that Piers Morgan asked. I think Piers Morgan has really excelled himself for being Piers in this interview, and people who love Piers Morgan will rave about this. Put some subtitles on showing how many times he's interrupted her, showing how many times he's asked her questions. And then of those questions, of which there are over 200, that's a lot of questions. She's answered 185 of them. Now she sounds like she's answered all of them, but she actually hasn't. So this is what this little video is about, is recognising when you're asking someone questions, when they don't answer it, they don't answer the questions. So I'm just going to have a little browse. I was literally just going to do the video. This is how many questions have been asked. This is how many have been answered. But since I've spent so much time actually looking at it, I think I might as well have a little chat about what's going on here.
Viewers are gripped by the apparently real-life struggle of a fledgling stand-up comedian who is mercilessly stalked.
If ever there was a pair of host, interviewer and interviewee who weren't on the same page, it's Piers Morgan and Fiona Harvey. And everyone's raving about what a great job he did and what a master of interviewing. And yeah, that is true, because interviewing is not an easy thing to do. And it's really not as easy as he makes it look. He is an absolute professional. He is. However, I've had a little look at this interrogation that he did. 201 questions he asked her. She answered 185 of them, and he interrupted 97 of those.
Who is mercilessly stalked by an older woman, Martha, in a 3-year onslaught of harassment.
And again, mercilessly stalked. Mercilessly. And you'll see later on Fiona Harvey's use of the word mercilessly, giving it back, handing it back to Piers Morgan. Okay, well, this is allegedly, of course, because she's denying it. Mainly what you're going to see is her denying this. And notice they say older woman Martha, and I think she said she's 58. Not sure how old Richard Gadd is actually. Just going to have
outside his house, attacking his partner, even confronting his family and friends.
And those are massive allegations to make against someone, aren't they? Okay, so they're saying that this lady, this one lady, Martha, did awful things to Richard Gadd. They're saying that she stalked him, she bombarded him with emails, she sent him loads of letters, messages, tweets, text messages, and it's just one person. They're not saying it's lots of different people. They're not saying they've taken parts of her character and created another person. They are literally saying this is a true story. And she's saying the opposite. It isn't true.
Now, Richard Gadd said that he and Netflix had gone to such great lengths to disguise Martha's real identity that she wouldn't even recognise herself. But that wasn't true. Many people did recognise, and the woman at the centre of the story was outed online within hours.
Simply by cross-referencing her tweet. What if Fiona Harvey wasn't Martha? What if people have assumed that she did all of those things because of the tweets that she sent to him? Is Richard Gadd really saying that Fiona Harvey is Martha? There are people out there that do this for a living, right? Why wouldn't these people have found her very quickly if all he did was quote her tweets?
Simply by cross-referencing her posts on social media with those that were used in the show. Other details about her character bear a striking, unavoidable similarity with the real woman now accused of being the crazed stalker Martha.
Crazed stalker. Do we have to have the crazed bit in there? Can we not just have stalker?
The show raises uncomfortable questions about the line between fact and fiction, fantasy and reality. Another innocent man in the television industry has been falsely accused of sexual assault, Well, Fiona Harvey is the woman outed as the real Martha of Baby Reindeer. She's chosen to confirm her identity.
She's chosen to confirm her identity. She's not admitting to being the crazed stalker.
And so, in her first television interview, she joins me now in the studio. Well, thank you for joining me.
Look at this poor lady. Now, she could well be a stalker. She might have done some of the things that they're claiming she's done, like sent him an email. She's claiming she didn't send him any messages and hasn't got his phone number. But look at her as she looks at the camera. Now, I don't think this is an act, personally. I don't think she's acting. I think there's a wave of feeling and recognition going over her. Oh my God, what am I doing here? You know that idea when you just get on a roller coaster and it's too late, you're on there, you buckle up, we're off. It's that look, isn't it? That realization that she's about to be judged by millions of people.
Well, thank you for joining me. First of all, why have you decided to go public?
The internet sleuths tracked me down and hounded me and gave me death threats, so it wasn't really a
It wasn't really a choice. I was forced into this situation. That's just a misconception, isn't it? Internet sleuths tracked her down. Doesn't mean she has to speak up. Hounded her. Doesn't mean she has to respond. Gave her death threats. She could report them to police and fight back legally. It wasn't really a choice. There's always a choice. She was forced into this situation. No one is forcing her to go public, or particularly with Piers Morgan's show.
choice. I was forced into this situation.
What do you hope to achieve in this interview?
And she does give a lovely answer, but she hasn't answered that question.
I'm on your show because you're a veteran broadcaster. I think you'll give me a fair hearing. You were persecuted yourself not so long ago. So that's why I've chosen this show.
Have you watched the drama?
Not at all.
No. The answer was no. And then she expands on that.
I've heard about the court scene, about the jail sentences and all this sort of stuff.
But you really haven't watched any of it?
I haven't watched any of it.
You're not curious to?
No, I think it's...
Are you not curious to? No. She's expanded. I think I would be sick. Some of the death threats have been really terrible online. Well, any death threat is going to be terrible online. Why have people been sending her death threats? Because they feel sorry for Richard Gadd, so they think that she deserves death threats? I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it? It really is. Aren't you curious, was the question.
It's taken over enough of my life. I find it quite obscene. I find it horrifying, misogynistic. Some of the death threats have been really terrible online. People phoning me up. You know, it's been absolutely horrendous.
And people phoning her up, that's not an answer to this question. It's been absolutely horrendous. I'm sure it has. I wouldn't give credence to something like that, and it's not really my kind of drama. So she's sort of saying that anyone that gives credence to this drama that millions of people have watched are not on her level. And she could be right. She could be way above this. She could be superior in every way to never even contemplating watching a drama. If this wasn't her in it and it was about someone else, she wouldn't dream of watching this.
I wouldn't give credence to something like that, and it's not really my kind of drama.
When did you know that you were the person being depicted in this?
5 years ago on BBC Breaking News, I saw...
You're not answering the question.
And he was holding up placards, MP's wife stalker, and all of this, and he'd called it Baby Reindeer. That's all I knew.
So she saw something on BBC News. She sort of knew that it was about her, but she felt as though she didn't know him, and so she left it at that.
And when did you know that Netflix were doing something?
2 weeks ago. I had just moved flat, so it was 2 weeks ago past Saturday.
And how did you hear?
And this 2 weeks ago, I just moved flat. She didn't need to tell him all this information.
I saw on BBC Breaking News that he'd sold to Netflix, and both he and this character, Martha, this Jessica actress, seemed to be promoting mercilessly.
This character, Martha, this Jessica actress, seemed to be promoting mercilessly. This is her giving it back to Piers when he used the word mercilessly. I'm not sure that the level of promotion they were doing could honestly fairly be described as merciless.
Did you think then it was you that they were depicting?
I thought it was me they were depicting 5 years ago because of this MP's wife stalker article. And I thought, well, I've only met this guy 2 or 3 times. I don't know him. And left it at that. I should have possibly jumped it at that stage.
See, hindsight is a wonderful thing. She couldn't possibly have known, could she, what it was all about? Although I guess another alternative, and is it helpful to speculate what else could have happened, would have been to contact them and say, what you're doing, is this me you're portraying? Maybe she thought she wasn't going to be identified or something. But she is a lawyer.
So I had a vague idea then. The Daily Mail then approached me on the Wednesday, 2 weeks ago. So sort of 2 weeks tomorrow, but 2 weeks ago, if you see what I mean, and told me that I was getting death threats online, that I'd been outed as Martha. There were TikTok videos.
Were you online at all? Because you were before, but are you these days online?
I've come off Facebook as of yesterday.
Are you on X, what used to be Twitter?
No, I'm not.
Because you had an account.
Yeah, that's right. Years and years ago. I'm scared to Google up BBC Breaking News. I'm certainly scared to Google up the Daily Mail in case I am on it in some bizarre circus.
That moment you realised it was you that they were depicting from what you were reading. The sleuths, as you say, had found your tweets. They compared some of the phraseology. They'd done the maths and they worked out this was you that was being depicted. How did that make you feel?
Absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I couldn't believe he'd done that. And so long after first meeting, we're talking 10, 12 years ago, really horrendous. I didn't know who to trust. I was told by the Daily...
So how did that make you feel? Piers said, and she actually answered, absolutely horrendous. Made her feel absolutely horrendous when they've discovered that it was her. And then she goes on to say she couldn't believe he'd done that. Not so long after the first meeting. Now, I'm not sure whether so long after the first meeting is relevant. She couldn't believe he'd done that. And then she's put this big gap of distance between, as if to say, well, if he'd done it straight away, then she could believe he'd done it. But because it was so long ago, she just found that unbelievable.
Don't trust those bleeps in Scotland. Whereas I found John Dingwall of the Daily Record completely wonderful, actually. He's acted with total courtesy. I couldn't believe this had happened.
So the didn't know who to trust bit is like saying, this is the fallout and this is how it affected me afterwards. And then she goes off on a tangent talking about Scotland. I was told by the Daily Mail. And again, there is this sort of naivety and belief that the authority comes from talking about a newspaper. I was told by the Daily Mail, don't trust those bleeps in Scotland. So there's a little bit of stirring going on there, and it's completely irrelevant to how she felt, right? Again, she's introduced more information. Don't trust those bleeps in Scotland, whereas I found John Dingwall of the Daily Record completely wonderful, actually. He's acted with total courtesy. So now she's saying something really positive, which is not what the Daily Mail was saying about him. So now she's stirred something up between John Dingwall and the Daily Mail. But she is reiterating, I couldn't believe this has happened.
I want to play a little clip. This is just some of the reaction to Baby Reindeer from members of the public.
She ends up becoming this the craziest stalker I ever seen in my life.
And this is all a true story.
This is all a true story, yeah. And they've found the real woman online.
So I assume in the actual thing, they've obviously given her a different name. It's a different woman, but you know what I find? They always manage to find a similar looking woman, and the build tends to be the same.
I have a theory about this, though. I feel like he's done it on purpose because he knew that people would find her, and he wants to make her life hell a bit.
When you hear that, what do you think?
The bit that they've chosen to play is the bit that reiterates it's all a true story, which is obviously on Fiona Harvey's side, because she's claiming that it's not true, and they definitely did claim that it was true. But at the same time, later on in the interview, Fiona Harvey uses this little clip to say, oh, these guys didn't believe a word of it. I'm not sure that's how I would interpret what he just said.
The final guy on there, I think, is correct. I think he always wanted this to come out, to persecute someone, to take attention away from him and this rape allegation. And I just generally think he's got extreme psychiatric problems.
So now she's introduced this another idea of the rape allegation. She is always very careful to call it an allegation. For those of you who haven't seen the programme, the allegation is Richard Gadd alleging rape from a guy in the TV industry. Does she think he doesn't want any attention? Because if you didn't want any attention on a rape case, the last thing you would do is to create a Netflix show called Baby Reindeer and put in an alleged rape scene, right? What is that? It is confusing to me. It literally is confusing to me why she would make this link between him wanting it to come out to persecute someone. So there is the argument that he did want to see her suffer in some way, but what that has got to do with taking attention away from the rape allegation, because the two things, that just doesn't make any logical sense, does it? Because he's creating more attention to himself.
I mean, there's no doubt he has problems. I mean, if you watch given that he's written it about himself, if you watch the whole thing as I did, all 5, 6 episodes, whatever it is, he has a lot of problems. He's quite open about that. The question, I guess, which we'll come to.
So Piers Morgan is sort of saying, this is not news, Fiona. What you're telling me is not news. You've only got to look at it to see what sort of problems he's got. And again, looking at Fiona's reaction to that, go over to the deception detective and have a little look, because that wasn't my aim of looking at the responses, whether or not Fiona's being truthful or deceitful here, because my thing is, if anyone had been asked this amount of questions in this short amount of time, the same way that she has, a lot of people would be on the defensive, they'd be traumatised, they'd be in a state of shock and really confusion already, being in front of millions of people, being able to do that. So I'm not sure how accurate any analysis of her behaviour can be just by looking at how she's responding and reacting here, because none of us know how we would respond and react faced with an interrogation by Piers Morgan on live television in front of millions of people, right?
Is how much of the way he depicts you is true. Your position is that it's just not factual.
It's a work of fiction. It's a work of hyperbole, as I've always said. And there are two true facts in that. His name is Richard Gadd, and he worked as a jobbing barman on benefits in the Holy Arms, and we met.
Those are the only 3 facts. So she does acknowledge, while she's reeling off these facts that she's claiming, now actually she's just named 5 of them. And she recognises, there's more than 2. She said there were 2, now there's 3, but actually there's 5.
So you first met him. I mean, the show shows you coming in to a London pub. You've just named the.
And then the way that he says to her, you've just named the pub, it's like an accusation. You've outed the pub as well. And her face, looking at him there, she's literally looking down her nose at him, but she hasn't got her glasses on. So that might be something that she does in an attempt to sort of really gauge the temperature coming from Piers. And this is the 16th question he's given to her. 16 in 6 minutes.
And he's working behind the bar, Richard Gadd, and he offers you a cup of tea. Is that what happened?
No, that's not correct. He didn't offer me a cup of tea. Nobody gets anything free from the Holy Arms.
And there we are again with the extra information, and it's just a little dig, isn't it? No one gets anything free from the Holy Arms. Well, she doesn't know about everyone. She's talking for everyone. No one gets anything for free, and it's sort of disparaging towards the Holy Arms, as if to say they're really tight or they're really mean. But it's a business. Why would anyone expect to get anything free from a pub? You expect to pay for everything you get, right?
I was in for a meal with a drink of lemonade, and I was very, very hungry. I'm diabetic, so very hungry. So that's.
And did you talk to him?
Sorry about this. I did put up a little peacock there because when I first listened to this, I thought Piers was only going to interrupt a few times. I'm like, oh, surely he won't interrupt. He'll just listen to what she's got to say. No, he interrupts. Wait for it. 97 times. That's nearly half of the questions that he asks. He interrupts her.
He interrupted a conversation. There was another barman there, and he said, "Oh, you're Scottish," and basically commandeered the conversation. I was talking to somebody. It's pretty rude to interrupt. So he seemed to be obsessed with me from that moment onwards.
I mean, just speaking to you, I never met you before.
So she's claiming that he was obsessed with her, and also she's let Piers know how she feels about being interrupted. It's very rude to interrupt. She's saying, letting Piers know. You couldn't be more clear that she's letting him know she's aware that he's interrupting her, and she feels that's rude. It's not going to stop him though, because this is his this is who he is. This is his nature.
But you do look and sound very similar to the actress in the drama.
I haven't seen the actress. We're both Scottish. We've both got dark hair. She's considerably younger than me. I think she's about 18 years younger than me.
She hasn't seen the actress. We're both Scottish. They're not. The actress isn't Scottish. The actress is English. We've both got dark hair. Not really. The actress has got a much lighter shade of brown than Fiona's. And also in the play, they make her have grey hair. And for Piers to say that she's similar to the actress, I think is really unfair, honestly, because if we're just going on the colour of the hair, they haven't got the same colour hair. And the fact that she's younger than her. And in fairness also to Fiona, she does look good for her age. She's 58. She's knocking 60. She's looking good. She looks much better than the person, how they've portrayed her in the show.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 58. I'm a year younger than you.
He's asked her, how old are you? She's told him. She didn't have to tell him. Again, another rude thing. In this day and age, why are people obsessed with women's ages? If this had been about a guy, would we really have been saying to him, how old are you? I don't know, maybe he would, it's possible. But then she introduces this idea of framing herself against Piers Morgan.
And I think Martha, Jessica, the actress, is about 40, 38, 40.
Talking about Martha, Jessica, the actress, without using her surname, the actress. I think they call themselves actors now, don't they? But it is a little bit demeaning, and she's probably not meaning to be. Let's hope she's not meaning to be.
It says in the show that you proceeded to return to the same pub time and again, but you never paid for a drink.
I don't drink alcohol. And
did you pay for anything?
And I don't drink alcohol. Again, answering the question. He didn't actually ask a question. It's that he says these questions, right, and I have to tell you, if I'd counted all the statements that he'd made in an invitation to answer this allegation, he would have asked 265 questions. But I've only counted actual questions, ones that can be considered a literal question. Now, I'm not sure, because he's offered out this statement, Fiona has been able to pick a question for herself. So she's answered the question, do you drink alcohol? I don't drink alcohol. I love that. It's just really not answering the question, because there wasn't a question, so she can pretty much say what she likes. And she doesn't drink alcohol. Now that is a big deal. That's a big claim to make, isn't it? She keeps going into this pub, and he's saying time and time again, as if there's something wrong with repeatedly going into the same pub. Now, most people repeatedly go into the same pub, don't they? And again, he's left that so vague. It's not like, well, you went into the same pub 5 days a week for 6 months or whatever. There's no quantifiable amount here. It's just left to the imagination of the viewer time and time again. And no wonder she's confused. Well, I don't drink alcohol.
You had
lemonade or soft drinks.
Would he give you free drinks? Or?
No, absolutely not. This is sort of a depiction of me as a pauper who wouldn't stand around or stand a drink. It's nonsense.
Depiction of her as a pauper or a sponger, actually, because they're claiming that she's a lawyer, inference there being that she can afford to buy her own drinks. They didn't depict her as a pauper, but she was depicted then as someone who didn't need to pay because it made it sound as if he was happy to pay her, give her drinks. I wonder if she does buy drinks. She didn't actually say, every time I go in a pub, I buy a round. If I go out with my friends, we take it in turns to pay. She didn't actually quantify that. She just said, this is a depiction of me. And then she's picked up a narrative which that's not what I saw when I was watching the play. Let me know if you saw that differently.
It says that you told Richard Gadd that he looked like a baby reindeer toy you once had as a child, hence the name of the show.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I appear to have written most of the show in my sleep. I dressed.
And that's really funny. I appear to have written most of the show in my sleep. That is really funny. She doesn't mind taking credit for her words being used to create a show that's successful, right? But at the same time, it's just something she said in the pub and someone else has picked up on it and used it. But she seems to be enjoying the glory of being responsible for this success. But at the same time, she's saying that the whole thing is horrendous. So there's a little bit of conflict there. But she's saying it's true. She said, yes, I appear to have written most of the show in my sleep.
Did you have a baby reindeer?
I had a.
And you can believe it was a joke. And you can believe that they were all happy to have that joke. She's inadvertently, unbeknownst to her, penned the name of the show. She actually hasn't, because she's spoken it and somebody else has penned it. Somebody else has taken the time out to write the show. So I'm a little bit strange about that answer, because it feels like she's trying to take credit for something that she's not happy about. But at the same time, she's trying to take credit for it. She didn't actually answer the question. She's batted that away. It was a Hawley Arms joke about curtains and a lot of sexual innuendo. She didn't actually say yes or no to that. And then she said yes after Piers has had to ask the question again. But 26 questions in. 26 questions. When was the last time you had to sit down and answer 26 questions from anyone? I don't think you answer that amount of questions when you're on your driving test, do you? It's this, interrupting. I think it would be impossible to look through a window several stories up. Now, I don't know what's happened with the audio here, but it sounds like she's being quiet and he just talks over her. Did anybody else see him there? So he's asking her an impossible question. It would be impossible to look through a window several stories up, and she hasn't doubled down and said, I'm on the 8th floor, I'm on the 9th floor, whatever floor she was on. But she thinks it would be impossible to look through a window several stories up, and she'd be right, wouldn't she? But Piers doesn't like it when she's making sense, when she's saying things which are blatantly true, and common sense would suggest that you can't look through a window if it's several stories up. He doesn't like it. If it doesn't fit into the narrative of what he believes to be true, he's talking over and shutting her down. Did anybody else see him there? Well, how the hell would she know? Sorry, how would she know? Let's just say she could be completely lying about all these things. She might live on the 1st floor. We don't know, do we? We can only work with this information that we're being shown. How can she know that? She never saw him at her place. She doesn't know that he never turned up at her place. It categorically didn't happen that she saw him. She doesn't think anybody else saw him. I suppose if anyone else did see them, they didn't tell her. And so they're too busy shouting over each other. So now she's got a peacock head as well. I'm sorry, dear YouTube. I do get bored with this little picture in a minute and stop putting the peacocks on, because then at this stage, after 33 questions, I realised, oh, hold on a minute, he's just going to be shouting over her most of the time. So she did say absolutely not. I mean, she hasn't really dug into that and said, no, I didn't send him any emails, I didn't send him any Facebook messages. Not yet. She does later on clarify this. But right now, she's just doing a blanket denial. Absolutely not. It doesn't get more blanket denial than that, does it? Absolutely. That's completely, no, that didn't happen. So she was just agreeing with him that they would be obsessively doing something. But before he could finish his sentence, she's talked over him. So it's taken her 9 minutes to settle into this to and fro with Piers and start playing him his own game. And I think this is what's happening here. She's just recognising that he's not interested in hearing what she's got to say, and it's not going to be a conversation or her side of the truth. It's just an interrogation, and she's just batting it back to him. And here she does say she doesn't think she sent him anything, which is a little bit of a strange thing to say. I don't think I sent him anything. So she's sort of claiming, well, if I did send him something, I've sort of forgotten about it. Is that what's happening? Here we go. So then Piers says you never sent him anything. And again, it's those extreme catch you in a lie if there's even one. Because a moment ago you said never sent anything. And then Fiona says no. I think there may have been a couple of emails exchanging, but that was it. A couple of emails. So she's admitting to a couple of emails at this stage. So he's paused to allow her to join in, to make her look as though she's interrupting him. This is, and then he can see her face moving, and then she starts talking. It's completely incorrect. And then he starts talking again. So they're just talking over each other. It's almost unwatchable, parts of this. She was about to say, where would anyone, and I'm guessing that was going down the lines of where would anyone find time to do that? And then he interrupts her again because she's starting to make a rational argument. You can't have that. She was about to say something, but he doesn't like the idea that she's admitting to something. What was wrong with what she was about to say that would stop him? Would make him want to stop her saying it. Why didn't he like the idea that she was admitting to doing something? Can we quantify that? It wasn't numerous. It was about 18 tweets. So you could consider that to be numerous or not, depending on which way you look at that. 18 times, is that numerous to a person that you know, that you've met 18 times? I don't think I've ever tweeted anyone 18 times, honestly. Anyone out there? Is 18 times numerous? It's fair to say it's numerous, but also it's a loaded word, isn't it? Numerous. So she's saying no, she didn't write him letters. He did ask her, did you write him letters? She said no. One letter. So she's admitting to writing one letter. That's a weird thing to do, isn't it? You never sent a Facebook message. So she's saying yes. Or she's not. She's saying, as in affirmative, your statement is correct, which is a little bit confusing, isn't it? Because he's saying you never sent a Facebook message. She's saying yes to that. Yes, I never. Yes, I didn't. You'd expect her to say, or would you expect her to say, no, I didn't send? No, like to agree. She's agreeing with a negative, isn't she? And she's interrupting, who is they? The question was, why have they got all these details? And she's swerved it off to, well, who has got all these details? And then she's realised that he's taken the bait. Who has sent all this stuff to him? Who has sent all these things? And then so she's getting him to repeat the question so that she's answering the right question. And that is great, isn't it? I've no idea. I think he's probably made it up himself. That's just classic, isn't it? Really classic. Made it up himself. What if he has made it up himself? What if someone else has made it up? What if there's a third? Because she's plucking that out of the air. I think he's probably made it up for himself. Could be anything. Could be any reason why this information has come from. It might not even exist. So she can prove it wasn't her. Yeah, she'd be happy for someone to look at it straight up. Yeah, I've got nothing to hide, nothing to see here. And this is very strange, this bit. I find this bit a little bit strange because what technology do I use? She looks like she's really comfortable with this question. What technology do you use? She's a 58-year-old. Now, there are some 58-year-olds who are more than capable of using smartphones, more than capable of pretending that things come from one phone when actually they come from something else, very capable of covering their tracks. And there are other 58-year-olds who couldn't tell you how to put a SIM card in, right? Now, the thing about this answer she gives is all the extra information. A very, very old smartphone, very, very old smartphone, not just an old smartphone, a very, very old smartphone just now, because the other one packed up a week before moving. The other one packed up to the other one, as in a newer smartphone, one that she has been using recently, and then she puts it in with packed up a week before moving, which she's already mentioned. So it sort of gives that detail an element of truth to it. But if she had done all these things, it's quite possible they could be on the other phone. And she's pleased about this because it means it's dead and it can't be revived to be able to find any information on it, possibly. Yeah, so she's questioning that. So what? So it's sent from an iPhone. And she could have said, yeah, and I didn't have an iPhone. I had a smartphone, I didn't have an iPhone. But she didn't. So that makes me think that she's not tech savvy. I mean, I know she does say that she's not tech savvy. But you would think, wouldn't you, that for her to say yes, so if she knew that information and she was digitally sharp about digital things, that she would have just said, yeah, my phone wasn't an iPhone. No, see, she doesn't really understand that. And I don't really understand that. I'm guessing, right, the person sent messages and then wrote sent from my iPhone, because I've seen them all over Twitter, people talking about this, making jokes about it, you know, sending tweets and putting sent from my iPhone as a joke, to pretend you've got a better phone than you have, or to throw investigators off the scent. But the way she's saying this, I don't really understand that. I can believe that she can't see how you would do that, because you'd have to think about that, wouldn't you? It's not something, if you're not digitally savvy, it's not something you would think of doing.
Well, people can mask where they're sending stuff from.
Okay, right. I'm not Technology Whiz Kid of the Year. I wasn't doing that either.
I mean, obviously, when you make such an emphatic denial of the central point of the story, you're basically accusing both him but also Netflix of lying about it.
I am.
And that's pretty defamatory.
It's not defamatory if it's true.
No, it's defamatory that they've been to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I misunderstood there. Yes, exactly.
You see, and to her mind, in order to know how to do that, you'd have to be a Technology Whiz Kid of the Year. You know, not just a little bit good at digital, a little bit good at emails, a little bit good at PowerPoint, a little bit good at something Excel, whatever, WizKid of the Year. So you wouldn't actually have to be WizKid of the Year to be able to do that. She's not saying my digital skills are capable of doing that, but she is. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's like a big gap. Here's Technology WizKid of the Year. She's not that person. And he's capable of pretending you're sending a message from somewhere other than where you are, somewhere over here. But she is clearly saying, I wasn't doing that either. 100 emails a day, I'd say you could do that in an hour if you put your mind to it, couldn't you? Of course you could. But she can't see how anyone could do that amount of emails. Has she really not sat down for So I still do feel sorry for Fiona because she's got the mindset of she can see that from her point of view. And even when Piers was on her side and he's saying, no, it's defamatory to you, she hadn't realised the switch where he's on her side. And now there's a little bit of hope there that she's realised that he's coming round to see it from her point of view. But when she says she doesn't see how anyone could do 41,000 emails, 100 emails a day is really simple if you're only sending one-liners, right?
Exactly. I don't see how anyone could do 41,000 emails and all this kind of stuff, you know.
I don't know how much you know about technology, but are you aware that if it was you sending those emails, it would be very easy for the police, for example, to work out exactly where they come from? The IP address would reveal that.
Yes, I understand that, and it stays on forever.
And it stays on forever. Stays on forever. But the point is, this was years and years ago. No, I don't. Again, a little bit out there. It stays on forever, but it was years and years ago. So does, to Fiona's mind, forever only goes forward and doesn't go back. So it sounds like as if there was a valid reason for the emails congratulating him on his show.
The point is, this was years and years ago. We were congratulating him.
But it would all still be there.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
And if you sent 41,000 emails,
this is just a lot of rubbish. Yes, so that should be stored there.
That should be stored there, but it's all a lot of rubbish. See, Fiona didn't need to say that. She didn't need to confirm for Piers. And this is what I feel she's doing. She's now on his mindset and agreeing with him because she's in that agreeable state a minute ago and she's still there. Yeah, she's agreeing with him. That should be stored there. But she's talking about an imaginary set of emails, so they shouldn't be stored there. They shouldn't be stored anywhere. An imaginary set of 41,000 emails should be stored there, but 41,000 emails that don't exist shouldn't be stored anywhere.
Well, they'd all be there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got them.
So Piers goes from they would all be there. I mean, he's got them. Statement of fact. They would all be there from this imaginary place he was talking about to he's got them. And now Fiona has to go back into reality as well. No, he hasn't got 41,000 emails.
41,000 emails. That's over a year.
Well, according to you, there's only.
So this is where she started asking him questions back. 13 minutes in, and she's asking him questions back. And then, according to you, there's only a handful, right? And again, it's a little bit disparaging, isn't it? According to you, sort of disbelieving in his approach.
A handful,
yeah.
right?
I mean, how long would that take someone to type up?
How many do you think you sent him?
How long would that take someone to type up? 8. That's her 8th question now. Fiona's got 8 questions to Piers' 57. 57 questions. He's had 1 question for every year of her life, nearly. Right, next question's on 58. She's saying, I mean, how long would that take someone to type up? Come on, people. How long would it take you to type 100 emails? 1 a minute, 100 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours if you're a slow typer. Right, you could do it. Of course you could. But 3 hours out of your day, every day, I suppose if you split that up into 20-minute segments throughout the day, so that's quite a lot. It is quite a lot, isn't it? But that's only if it took you 3 hours. I reckon I could sit and type up 100 emails much quicker than that. And people do it all the time. Let me know. People out there, how long does it take you to send 100 emails? Do you do it in the first hour of your day? Like, what is going on out there? Surely. And you could even set a bot to send them, couldn't you? You could do automated emails. You could get AI to send them. Pretty sure you could organise that if you wanted to. Question, how many do you think you sent him?
A handful.
A handful. What does a handful mean? A handful does mean 5, doesn't it? I mean, a handful of emails. Weird thing to use as a quantifier for number of emails. Handful, because it's so vague. What does that mean? How many? He's spotted she's being vague.
What does that mean? How many?
Less than 10.
10 emails.
Not 41,000.
Right, there's a massive disparity between the two.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, if it's not you that sent all this, then clearly Martha cannot be you.
But this is where we're now in the realm of Alice in Wonderland. If it's not you that sent all this, then clearly Martha cannot be you.
Yes, Martha cannot be me because there are a number of allegations that have been put to me by journalists that are simply not true.
Martha can't be her because of the allegations that are simply not true. It's not just the emails. So the inference that, I was going to call him Giles for a minute there, the inference that Piers takes from this is that she can accept the emails, possibly, but by bringing up the other more serious allegations, it sort of wipes out it negates any connection between her and Martha.
Whole play, it's not just the emails. There's a sexual assault in the canal. There's
but if the police looked at this and
let me just look at her watch. She did. Did she just have a sneaky look down at her watch? Should we have a little look at that again? Watch this.
There's
but if
also,
and she's actually managed to glance down at her watch. She is. So she's 13 minutes in and she's wondering how long she's got. She's a quarter of the way in. And he's on question 17. He's literally asked her more than one question a minute.
If the police looked at this and if you sue, for example, then this will go to a court of law. And then on discovery, people will look into all this. The phone company will be asked about evidence of all the text messages. The internet providers will provide all the backup for the emails. Facebook will be asked about the Facebook messages and so on. So all of this would come out in a court case.
In disclosure.
Okay, so she's gone on to the legal background as something that where she feels comfortable. He's mentioned disclosure, so she's brought it back to the beginning of his question. She was nodding her head and looking a bit dazed. It was almost like her eyes were going round with visualising all of the information that's got to come her way from Facebook, and it's just huge, isn't it? So she's again taken control of this story that he's trying to tell, and back to where the ground that she's familiar on, talking about disclosure.
Yes.
And you're prepared to do that?
Yes. Because I didn't write him the emails.
I didn't write him the emails. Again, we're back to this dodgy ground, stating the emails as if they do exist, but she's claiming she didn't write them. But she's not claiming she didn't write him any emails. She's saying she didn't write him the emails and talking about them as if the emails makes it sound as though they do exist.
Who do you think did?
I have no idea. I think he probably made them up himself. I've no idea.
What do we think about that? Is that potentially true? Is it possible that the pair of them are out there in equal measure? She's going along with the idea that these emails exist. I think he probably made them up himself. It's that if you get reeled in to a story and then everyone goes along with it. It's like, here's this basic brick, the foundation of the argument. There are 41,000 emails. No one's seen any evidence of it. And yet they're all having this argument, this speculative arguments. They don't actually know the facts of the case.
41,000 emails.
Yeah.
And then, again, she's questioning the sheer volume of the emails as if that's an almost impossible amount.
I mean,
I don't know.
would you accept that someone who did that would be very obsessive about someone?
Yes, I mean that's a lot of emails. And why now?
Now this, yes, that's a lot of emails. So she's agreeing that it's obsessive. And then she's adding on question 10 and question 11. Why now? Why didn't he go to the police at the time? Now, I'm with Fiona up until this point, until she says this, because this is a typical thing that someone says when they're trying to discredit an actual victim. Why didn't they go to the police at the time? You know? And so that is questionable for me, why she's asking that question. It sort of doesn't make sense. Yeah, so as soon as they're on the email question, and she's agreed that it is a lot of emails, why has she brought this question in now? That's the question.
Didn't you go to the police at the time? Or this sort of doesn't make sense.
I mean, the fact that Netflix have said this is based on reality, this is a true story, that Martha did, the real life Martha, the person they based this on, who Richard Gadd has written about, is the person that sent these, and he has the evidence to prove it. What you're saying is that proves you cannot be Martha.
Yes, and I would like to see Netflix's evidence for that, which would come out in disclosure as well.
And you're 100% sure it's not you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes on to say that you heckled Richard Gadd when he was appearing in his stand-up.
Now, here's the confusing thing. She's saying she's 100% sure it's not her. But then cast your mind back to the beginning when she was saying she suspected it was her who was being depicted 5 years ago. Right. So she mentioned feeling she was being implicated somehow, and yet she's 100% sure it's not her. It's a little bit confusing, isn't it?
Shows. Did you ever do that?
No.
Never?
No, it's not.
Did you ever attend his stand-up?
I think I went to one. It was a long, long time ago.
And you never shouted out or anything?
Why would I do that? No.
I don't know.
No. I mean,
She answered the question with a question. Why would I do that? But then she did say no.
Do you ever shout out at comedy shows? I don't know.
No, I don't generally go to comedy shows.
She doesn't generally go to comedy shows, but she did go to one of his.
So you never heckled him?
No.
Did you ever attack?
He's asked her, have you shouted out? No, she didn't shout out. And she hardly ever goes to comedy shows. So, sort of deflecting away from did you shout out by saying I hardly ever go, but she did go to one. So by not being specific there in the questioning, Piers has let her get away with some vague answer. And when he says, did you ever heckle him? She says no. Again, it would depend what she thinks of as heckling. If she was just saying words that were supportive of her friend that she was supporting, she might see that differently. She might not see it as heckling.
Richard Gadd's girlfriend because you were jealous?
Just stopped at, did you ever attack Richard Gadd's girlfriend? She might have attacked her because she was envious. She might have attacked her because she felt threatened. She might not have attacked her at all. But the idea that he gave her the leeway because you were jealous. Just, are you with me?
I don't think he had a girlfriend. I think he's homosexual. But no, I have never been to his house or attacked any girlfriend or anything like that.
There are lots of scenes where Martha is sitting outside his house all day for many days, sitting in a...
So she's nodding and saying, right. I mean, it sort of looks like it's the first time she's heard this news, but the way she's saying, right, maybe somebody has told her that's part of the storyline.
Bus stop, sitting out there, walking around, and would occasionally shout at him. Did you ever do that?
No, I haven't seen the show.
I haven't seen the show. No, I haven't seen the show. Okay, so again, what's seeing the show got to do with whether or not she was sitting at a bus stop?
I'm getting.
I have. So
I got all the court allegations, the trial allegations.
Which has got nothing to do with sitting at a bus stop.
I'm going to come to that, but on that point, did you ever turn up at his house?
No, I don't know. I don't know where he lived. No.
Absolutely no. She didn't know where he lived. No.
Absolutely not.
So whoever's doing all this is somebody completely different.
This is a fictional character.
It's a fictional character. How does she know it's a fictional character? It might be someone else. It might be another person. How does she know this didn't happen, but somebody else was Martha?
Hyperbole, exaggeration. This is a figment
Well, it's based on
of his imagination.
They say it's based on a real person.
Who's they? Netflix.
Well, Netflix.
Well,
and Richard Gadd.
Netflix are about as mad as Richard Gadd. If they're saying that, it's absolutely not correct.
How does she know if it's somebody else? She's denying something that she can't know is true or isn't true.
Did you ever contact Richard Gadd's parents and threaten them?
No, that allegation was put to me by journalists. No.
That allegation was put to me by journalists. No. Now, Piers Morgan is a journalist. When she says these things and brings in other authorities for reasons not to answer a question or to answer a question, it does remind me that she's sort of letting him know that he's not the only person that she's had to deal with answering these questions. That question was put to me by journalists, so she's been accused of this before and she's still saying no.
Never happened.
No.
Straight up no. She was going to say something else then, but changed her mind.
There's one key point in the drama that has Martha's character pleading guilty to intimidating Richard Gadd in court and sentenced to 9 months prison time. Let's watch.
You are charged with the stalking of Mr. Donald Dunn between the dates of the 14th of August 2015 and the 22nd of March 2017. Are you guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You are charged with the harassment of
My little reindeer.
Now, again, there is obviously a resemblance between...
Do you think so? That's hardly flattery.
Well, I don't mean to flatter you or not flatter you. I just think there is a resemblance, you know, having met you, and you both speak Scottish people. Yeah. But the fundamental point of this is, did you take part in that? So did you go to jail? Did you have a trial?
Of course not. Of course not.
Have you ever been to prison?
No.
Have you ever been charged with a criminal offence?
No.
Never?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Nowhere near it. She's never been to prison. Nowhere near it. No, of course not. Because if you believed everything she said earlier, why would she have gone to prison for anything?
So that scene is completely invented.
That's completely false. And I don't think the actress sounds like me. I mean, people compare me to Lorraine Kelly, but I look nothing like Lorraine Kelly. We all happen to have dark hair and we're Scottish. You know, I think the actress is from Glasgow, I think, but I'm not sure.
People compare me to Lorraine Kelly, she says. But I look nothing like her.
But and which part of Scotland are you from?
I'm from the Central Belt.
So a slightly different accent.
It's slightly different.
A Scot would know the difference.
A Scot would know the difference. A Glasgow accent's very different.
But that's a fundamental point here, because if they basically have a key point in their drama, which they say is a true story, which involves you admitting to intimidating Richard Gadd and getting a 9-month prison sentence. And that is completely untrue.
That's completely untrue. Very, very defamatory to me. Very career damaging. And I wanted to rebut that completely on this show. I'm not a stalker. I've not been to jail. I've not got injunctions, interdicts. This is just complete nonsense. But it's, I mean, you'll know yourself, if you're charged with a criminal offence, it will go fine. Bigger fine, whatever. Very few people go to jail.
Well, you'd have a police record
nowadays.
Yeah. Have you ever changed your name?
Oh, you'd have a police record. Have you ever changed your name? You see, the way he asks these questions with such confidence appears to be out of the blue, but you just know, don't you, that he knows that she's been known as a different name. He's got the information. They've done all the digging around with the dirt.
My surname was double-barreled.
What was it?
Muir Harvey. So Muir Harvey. When
88 questions we're on now. 19 minutes.
Yes.
Harvey.
When the parents got divorced, I changed it to Harvey. I just dropped.
So your maiden name when you were born was?
Yeah, that's right.
Was
Muir. Yes.
Muir Harvey.
Yeah.
So that's quite an unusual name.
Yeah.
So if you'd ever received a criminal conviction for anything, it would be on police files.
Yes.
And what you're saying?
What? If she'd ever received a criminal conviction for anything, She's got an unusual name. It would be on police files. Well, if her name had been John Smith, that would be on police files as well, wouldn't it? What's the unusualness of her name got to do with it? Vice versa.
Is you've never been even charged with an offence.
No.
Let alone the one that they.
Yes, I mean, this is 9.5 months in jail is pretty serious.
Did Netflix
9.5 months in jail. They're claiming that she's done 9.5 months in jail. She hasn't even done a day in jail. She hasn't even been to court, she's saying. And these are things which are easy to find out.
ever contact you?
No, no one's contacted me.
Never?
Never.
Did Richard Gadd tell you what he was doing?
No, I had worked it out when I saw the festival Baby Reindeer advert on BBC.
The Edinburgh Festival,
the Edinburgh
show
Festival.
he did.
I just happened to see that ad. I was looking up the news for something else.
She just happened to see that ad. See, to me, that's a little bit strange, bunging that information in there that he hasn't asked for. He hasn't asked her, did she set up a Google search alert? And she's given that extra information. I just happened to see it. It just happened to come up.
Where he
I just happened to see that.
Well, that's where he started telling the story, and that got picked up.
I'm shocked. And I think Martha then was a bar stool. I seem to recall reading that. It wasn't an actress or a person, it was a bar stool.
Let me just show a little clip. This is from Lorraine, actually, who you just compared yourself to. But let's take a look at this.
What other people do.
This is Richard.
Yeah, in fairness to her, she didn't compare herself to Lorraine. She said, people compare me to Lorraine Kelly, and I look nothing like her, is what she actually said.
Richard Gadd on Lorraine.
I just thought it was the right time to sort of try and bring a nuanced conversation to something. I think the human condition is extremely complicated, and I felt like a lot of the art and TV in this day and age had maybe simplified it too much.
It's not a villain and victim storyline. I think you're left with a lot more than that. It's kind of two lost people.
I think they're milking it for all it's worth for the money. She doesn't even sound Scottish in that interview. Her accent seems to be varying.
Well, she's not. She's English. She's an actress.
I was going to say it sounds more Lancashire to me. Yeah,
no, she's English.
She's
an actress. She's putting on the voice for you.
They're milking it for all they're worth. It was the right time to abuse someone all over social media and all over, basically somebody who's not from Loveyland, not from Theatreland, just abuse me all over the newspapers. They're happy with themselves.
And it does sound like she's got a fair point, doesn't it? You know who she reminded me of when I first saw her? Susan Boyle. Do you remember Susan Boyle from, what was it, The X Factor or Britain's Got Talent or Pop Idol? One of those. I think it might have been Britain's Got Talent. And she stepped onto the stage. Wasn't she from Scotland? And she had sort of greying hair and she looked a bit dumpy and frumpy. And then she sang and had the voice of an angel. And it's the first time I think we'd heard Simon Cowell say, I was not expecting that. And then she was hounded by the press and she was treated really badly. And I'm not sure if she had to move, but I know her life went from being comfortable and livable to, was it hounded out of her town? At least it feels very similar to me, what's happening to this person here.
What do you feel about Richard Gadd?
What do you feel about Richard Gadd? And then she doesn't answer that one. I think he's psychotic. I think anyone going along being part of that play and doing this to somebody, I find the behaviour outrageous. Okay, doing it to somebody, but she's claiming it's not true. She's claiming that it's a fictional character they're doing it to. And people are mistaken that it's her. So he hasn't actually done it to her because it's not her.
I think he's psychotic, and I think that anyone going along, being in that play, and doing this to somebody, I find the behaviour outrageous.
He says the whole thing started because he felt sorry for you, and that's why he befriended you.
Your staff said that to me
Your staff said that to me in the waiting room. I'm not sure why she clarifies that as these are questions to be asked in advance. I don't know what that is all about. Is it playing for time so she can think? But then she absolutely says this is a lot of nonsense. Is she annoyed at having to answer the question twice?
The waiting room. This is a lot of nonsense. I've got lots of friends.
What did you talk to him about?
It was just a holy arms banter.
What did you talk to him about? Holy arms banter. Not answering the question.
Was
like what? What kind of?
He has to ask again. Be more specific. What did you talk about?
What you're going to do with your life, or career stuff. Sort of. And I thought he was a stand-up show.
But is it possible he was under the impression that he felt sorry for you?
Is it possible? I think he asked the question wrong here, didn't he? Is it possible he was under the impression that he felt sorry for you? Of course he could have been. And how would Fiona know that? She wouldn't know if he was under the impression that he felt sorry for her. What? And then she answers it as if he's asked her the question. Did you get the impression that he was sorry for her? No, I never got that impression at all. I got the impression he was all out for himself. And then she starts on wanting to sort of control that bar, and that he was very, very inarticulate, very full of himself. Well, we've just seen an advert. We've just seen a little bit of him on the rain where he sounded quite articulate to me, but he wanted to control that bar.
No, I never got that impression at all. I got the impression that he was all out for himself, wanted to sort of control that bar, very, very inarticulate, very full of himself. I should never have gone in that bar.
Do you wish you never had?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
How long?
So she really regrets going in that bar and having anything to do with Richard Gadd. How long did you know him for?
You know him for, Richard Gadd?
2 or 3 months. 2 or 3 months at maximum. He only worked there on certain days.
And did you always go on the days he worked there?
No, I've been in there on different days having food.
Did you always go on the days he worked there? She's saying, no, I have been there on different days. She didn't say no. In other words, she could have gone in there every day that he worked there and been in there on different days having food.
Have other people from the pub contacted you?
Nobody's contacted me.
Okay, again, another strong response. Nobody's contacted me from the pub.
No one at all?
About this at all, apart from the media?
About this at all, apart from the media, the mainstream media, and stalkers on social media, but no one from the pub.
Yeah, the mainstream media and stalkers on social media.
He says, Richard Gadd, he didn't see you as a villain, but as somebody who is unwell and needs help.
Yeah, well, he maybe should look a bit closer to home, to himself, as someone who needs...
Best form of defence is attack, and that's what she's done. So rather than say, well, I don't need any help because I'm of sound mind and I know my own mind, I know the truth, I know what I experienced, I know how it felt, I know how this feels. She's just gone on the attack. No, look at him. So she's pointing back. So they are sort of a bit, butting heads.
Help.
What, you think he's mentally unwell?
Yes, I think he always was. Whether there was a...
She thinks he's mentally unwell. Yes, I think he always was. So she made friends with someone that she believed to be mentally unwell. And now she's bringing in the question of the alleged rape, or whether that rape was real or conceived in his mind. She's actually saying this out loud. Whether or not, she's actually putting some doubt into people's minds to whether or not he was raped.
An alleged rape, or whether that rape was real or conceived in his mind, I think that would make him more...
I mean, that's a rape that he says happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was a television person. We don't know who it was.
Anna's looking at her watch again.